This is the Team Objection Podcast for August 9th, 2022, episode 540. I almost timed everything perfect, and then when I went to unmute my mic, because we muted during the intro, the sources changed and it moved up Dave's mic. So instead of unmuting myself, we were all muted, but it only lasted for a second. Everything's fine.
No one would have had a clue about that had you not said a word.
I know, but it's important to take ownership for your mistakes, and in this case, I will do that. As usual, my shirts don't fit me properly. You can always see one arm, but not the other arm.
Is that a way you sit, possibly?
Possibly. I'm not quite straight on, so that doesn't help because I'm angled at the camera, but the TV and neutral is this way, so that's part of it.
Camera straight here. I got this.
And because I just have large shirts, and I'm not really a large. If I got custom fitted, I'm a little taller than a large, but more narrow, but broader shoulders.
If you got the XL, you'd get this going on where...
I know. There's just no winning.
Yeah.
Us tall, husky gentlemen. I'm not husky, but...
You're not husky. You're just tall.
No. Hey, so it's just me and Dave this week. As we mentioned kind of in advance, Sean's heading to Seattle, if I remember correctly. So he's not here. Should be back just in time next week, so we'll see what that show entails. And we tried to rope Cody in, but then... other plans didn't work out, so he's not here. So it's just the two of us, but it's okay because we have hot takes.
We have so many hot takes. I have Rage Against the Machine. Oh, wait. I don't think I have Machine. No, there's no Machine that pissed me off, I don't think.
Yeah, and I actually don't have hot takes, but I'm going to discuss a few things that have brought about hot takes. So I'm not going to promise hot takes, and I'm not going to start my sentences with the patented phrase, but they did engender some internet controversy, and so I think they're worthy of discussion. It's kind of like half hot take, half headlines. Now, the question will be if Dave can guess what any of these are. He knows the first one. It was his suggestion, although I had also seen the video. But we'll see if he can figure out any of these, or if he happened to have known about them in advance, or if I'm going to be breaking the news to him for the first time.
Probably the final thing you said, because nothing's coming to mind here. But probably once you mention, I'll remember it, because I have a terrible recollection.
Could be.
Good memory.
I gave them all alliteration to be fun, so if you're watching, as usual, you get the bonus of video effects and stuff. Whoa.
Why didn't you put intriguing intro?
I didn't want to add to those. I'm lazy. Because if I do that, I have to do it 6 times. And outstanding outro. But no.
Offloading outro.
No, we cannot do that. We will not do that. I'm going to let you introduce the first one. Since I'm going to be tasked with the other 3, I'm going to let you do the lifting on the first one and then take a nap.
Okay, that's fine. So, as you can see, video people can see in the picture here, there's a story that happened. Little League World Series is going on right now. And this is always kind of that everyone likes it, even if you don't really like baseball, unless you're a curmudgeon and hate everything. Because these are kids playing 99.9% of the time. They have great sportsmanship. The coaches are on, just trying to teach them to do the right thing. Everyone's playing hard, trying to win. You get some hero moments, but you also get some mistakes because they're kids. It's usually just kind of a cool, fun thing to watch. Well, in one of the games, Texas team was playing an Oklahoma team for the right to go to Williamsport, which is a big deal when you're a kid, a 12-year-old kid, to go to the Little League World Series. First inning, the Texas pitcher threw a pitch, it got away from him, and hit one of the Oklahoma kids in the head. It was, it fortunately caught the kid in the helmet, shook him up a little bit. He laid on the ground for a little while. You got hit in the head with a baseball. I'd lay on the ground too. And eventually got up. Everyone checked on him. He was okay. He ran to first base, stood on first base for a moment, and looked over and saw the pitcher was just not able to handle it. Felt so bad. Felt awful about hitting this kid in the head. He didn't mean to, and was crying a little bit in the mound, just trying to compose himself. Got the Oklahoma player who got hit by the pitch, walked over to the pitcher and hugged him and just said, "It's okay. It's fine. I know you didn't mean it." And it was one of these like kind of bring tears to your eyes type of moments where you're like, man, that is just so pure, where you see someone else is hurting and you tell them, hey, I know you're hurting because you thought you hurt me, but I'm okay. I'm going to be fine. You're going to be fine. Let's do this. Even though you're in competition with each other. It's a beautiful moment. Yet the internet had to get a hold of it. And some people I saw had great reactions, that type of, wow, what a great moment. Other people, like Dave Portnoy, for example, of whom I have no respect for. I can't stand the guy. I think he runs an absolute garbage website in Barstool Sports. But he comments about how this is your chance to go to Williamsport. You can do patty cake after the game, which is just flies in the face of it. And I thought, he's an idiot, whatever. And then there's some people who took some satiric takes on it on Twitter, and that happens. But I saw too many people commenting on these videos just saying like, man, the World War II boys would be sad to see this much softness in America today. And I'm just like, this isn't soft. This is the antithesis of toxic masculinity, which drove, male suicide rates high, which drives the male life expectancy lower. And it is breaking out of this, you gotta be a tough guy type of mentality. And I thought it was beautiful. And that there is people who still shit on this, and I cannot stand it.
I'm going to play some devil's advocate here.
Fair.
And I'm going to fail. But if there are scenarios where, like, say in like a track and field event or something, competition is still going on and somebody gets hurt or there's some other mitigating factor and other people help them out, and it's kind of a heartwarming moment because it's more about like the spirit of competition than the competition itself. Now, I don't think the people who are winning the race are usually the ones helping. Usually it's other folks who have fallen back and maybe don't have a chance themselves. Doesn't matter though. In those spots, I could maybe see the complaint where it's, okay, you have only one shot at this. Maybe you could mount some kind of comeback. You're throwing away a chance to do something to help another competitor. That would still be dumb. But at least I would understand it. If for some reason when you got hit by a pitch you could run the bases or something, and not just trot down to first once you were ready, I could maybe understand, because now instead of like looking out for your team, you're putting something else before it. I don't think I would understand either, but I'm at least trying to spitball ways where I could think maybe you can make this argument. For the sake of debate, I can't really do it. I can't be Sean and take some dumbass opposite approach here just for the sake of like roiling up controversy. Because, like, it's a nice moment, and it's a shame people had to be idiots and ruin it.
I mean, trying to take that argument, I can see your devil's advocate argument. Okay, it's a 100-meter dash. Somebody falls over while they're running. Okay, it's a 10-second race. Finish it and run back and see if he's okay. It's not going to matter in those 10 seconds.
Yeah, and if it does, there's something much worse happening. If he dies in the 10 seconds it takes to run that race, probably weren't going to be able to do anything for him anyways.
Exactly. You're not going to pick him up and carry him across the finish line if there's something that wrong with him. This instance, however, nothing was happening. The game wasn't being played. Time had been called. Nothing. He wasn't harming his team in any way by embracing this pitcher. Nothing bad happened. It was just a moment of humanity. And, I saw the post that you have up here, Chris. I think this kid should charge the mound. I think a lot of people said that in jest, and I'm fine with people joking around about that and laughing it off because it's just kind of a fun, thing to say in a moment like this. But I think there were some people who kind of almost had that mentality of like, you got to charge them out and show them who's boss. The plate's yours. It's like, no, this is a kid. They're kids. Why are we trying to teach our kids this? You don't have to be tougher than everybody else. And beating somebody up isn't showing you're tougher than everybody else.
I think what people wanted, well, some in jest and some really, as you mentioned, was a Nolan Ryan, Robin Ventura like reproduction where, they charge the mound and one of them gets him in a headlock and just punch, 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 punch. That's what they want from these kids. Because as you mentioned, that's the crux of this now. Because even in those hypotheticals I mentioned, which still don't apply here, these are also 10 to 12-year-olds. I don't know. To me, it's like, okay, I understand that there's this certain bastion that are trying to hold on to the old ideas. And okay, yeah, well, you can't show weakness. You don't want to show deference to your opponent. You just got to rub it a little bit and walk on down to first and whatever. And it's like, there's nothing wrong with this moment. There is something wrong with having a problem with this. And I mean a serious one. I don't even necessarily think everybody has to love this. But like, don't put out these dumbass toxic takes for no reason. And I know I'm talking to one of the worst merchants of that is possibly out there, but like, come on.
It's just the part of the reason I like sports so much is because you can put your whole heart into it. And at the end of the day, it doesn't mean anything. When the Suns lost Game 7 against the Mavericks, I was comatose pretty much the rest of that day. But in the end, it didn't affect me. My life still moved on, but I could put my whole heart and soul into it. These kids care. about these. If I was 12 and got to play on TV for a chance to like be basically world champion of all 12-year-old baseball teams, that's pretty cool. And I would care more than anything else. And if I lost a game, I would cry my eyes out at 12 years old. I did do that in a basketball game that I lost when I was 11 because I missed the game-winning shot. I bawled like a baby because I cared. These kids care. What else can you want out of these kids except caring and showing compassion for each other? That's it.
And if these kids are really fans of baseball, they've no doubt seen pitchers hit players in the head. The difference, of course, is that these are grown-ass men throwing 100 miles an hour and not whatever these kids throw, 60, 65, 70 tops maybe. So, like, I'm not saying there's still not risk, but again, like you said, helmet, not throwing as fast as the big leagues, but at the same time, not fully developed yet. And at the same time, also, you're just kids. And as much as I had like kids that I hated in grade school, whether it was because they teased me or they were just jerks in general, I mean, I gave out my share of teasing as well, so like I wasn't immune. I hated them, but I wasn't wishing harm on them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was funny if they got like hit in the balls in dodgeball, but not like serious injury, not like fall off the jungle gym shit. So to me, it's almost like an overcorrection. Like, okay, you think that everything's getting too pansified. Not a word I'm thrilled with, but a word I think they would find is apt, because now it's all participation trophies and orange slices and blah, blah, blah. You're pushing the pendulum too far in the other direction because you're never going to get people that might be in the middle on board with this harsh of a viewpoint. You're just not.
The idea that the pansifying is such a weird word to me, because showing compassion isn't being weak. As a line in Better Call Saul, that exact sentiment of don't mistake my weakness, or don't think my like basically eagerness to help. I can't remember the exact quote, but it's basically he was helping people, but don't mistake that for weakness. That's not how the world works. If we help each other more, that's not a sign of weakness.
Well, that's ridiculous. Your idea is dumb, and he actually should have charged the mound.
Yeah, he should have. I mean, yep, he threw it at my head, charged the mound, get kicked out of the game, and never played Little League again. Perfect.
I thought the catcher was funny in this. I'm not going to malign anybody, but for all the compassion the pitcher showed, and then the batter showed in turn to kind of console him, the catcher was kind of like, So he went to get the ball from where it had ricocheted off the kid's head, and then didn't really do anything. And look, I'm not saying that's bad or he messed up. Everybody has different responses in the moment. I just thought it was funny because we're seeing this moment, and I think back to the catcher being like, I don't know. I'm going to go get this ball, I guess. That's my job.
And again, you're 12. Like, I don't blame the kid one bit. He's like, well, someone should look at him. So, adults.
Yeah, maybe somebody who's medically trained, because I'm not. I'm 11.
Exactly.
So, take dumb takes out of here. Now, we could spend entire episodes, this whole show, talking about hot take merchants and idiocy, and, it would sort of be a waste of breath. But in these particular spots, I think it's fine. I'm just saying, like, this is also not hard to find if you really spend any time on social media. There are people who deal in this regularly, and they build a platform off of it. And unfortunately, even by talking about it, we're sort of aiding and abetting them. But
I was just more surprised at how much I saw. How many people. Like, it wasn't like one idiot. Like, I saw multiple people. Like, not quite a majority, but close. And I was surprised by that.
Yeah, and the majority of those people, who were a minority, got dunked on by the remaining majority. Got ratioed into oblivion. But the fact remains there were more of those comments than there should have been. And again, some of them were satirical. Too many of them weren't.
I think it's relatively easy to tell which ones are satirical, especially when they back it up with more outlandish claims. Like, someone tries to call out a satirical take on it, not understanding it's satire, and then they double down with a more outlandish take. It's like, okay, you're just being a troll, and I get that.
Yeah, and you can usually tell from the body of work they have, because there's like that third-year Letterman account where it's like the fake coach, or the Barry McLaughlin, whatever the hell his name is, like. Those, obviously, the Mark Jackson burner account, all those you can quickly tell, like, okay, that's not real. That's what this account does. Unfortunately, we can also quickly tell that is real. That's what this account does. Okay, that's Dave's hot take. Let's go to my first. That one was called Baseball Buffoons for the listeners. I made them all alliteration. This one is called Swift Sabotage. And I have a picture of a really poorly photoshopped Taylor Swift
Did you do that on your own?
No, I found it. That was funnier to me because I wouldn't have had time to do it otherwise. But she's way too big and popping out of the pilot window. I guess it's not clear. Maybe the door into the, I don't know.
Is she waving?
What we're talking about here is the news basically end of last week-ish that there was some claims that were put out there. I think it wasn't Rolling Stone directly. They were like citing somebody else, that Taylor Swift had been on like 180 private jet flights in the span of a few months. Some of them as little as like 10 or 15 miles. And the discussion then wasn't really so much about her specifically, but just like celebrity culture and excess and the environment. And, you know, there were people who were criticizing her for it. I think a lot of them already have disdain for Taylor Swift in general, so this was low-hanging fruit for them. I don't think any of Taylor's most devoted fans were swayed anything by this, but more so I wanted to talk about the fact that it is really difficult in an age of climate change, and if you're looking for climate deniers, you've come to the wrong place, to reconcile the fact that individual efforts are paled in comparison by high-profile individuals and also corporations. I'm going to let Dave talk for a bit before I go further into this point.
That was the point I was thinking of, is that a lot of times where someone who's famous puts a lot of weight into their cry for climate change or their awareness. They try to make people aware of it, all the while taking 17-minute private jet flights. And it's kind of a, hey, you're the problem, not me. No. You guys are the one that's screwing it all up. I'm better than you, so I'm going to do what I want to do. It's that whole sentiment, and it just doesn't strike well. Even if your thought process is noble, your actions speak a lot louder than your words when it comes to that type of thing. And now, I'm not saying nobody ever take a private jet anymore. I understand if you have the means, okay, like I get it, but also don't use that to excess, I guess.
You're essentially right. And look, again, kind of like the last story, some used this as an opportunity to poke fun, and there was, 5K, 10K, hell, 5-figure, I think even one of them went 6-figure likes on tweets that were, here's a picture of a helicopter, is Taylor Swift going to the grocery store, and here's 2 jets, it's her flying into one and then jumping into the other one and taking off again and going something like, and that's all fine, I guess. I don't have any harm in fun and, making light of situations. Hell, we all need jokes to get through some days, right? Like, it ain't easy out there some days. I'm also not trying to be defeatist or to suggest that, like, well, there's nothing we can do because they're spewing pollution into the ozone layer in these massive factories and Taylor Swift's taking jet rides across the country for fun. It is still difficult, though, and I wish there was more attention paid to the idea that, like, okay, individuals obviously, especially as a collective, can affect massive change, but you're going to have to make sure that the other ones who really can affect change are also on board, or their efforts are going to start to feel futile, because, like, I can reuse our Ziploc bags and recycle as much material as humanly possible from the city of Flagstaff, but if it feels like a veritable drop in a dwindling ocean, I'm not going to give up, but it doesn't inspire me to try even harder.
Well, it will make other people give up. It'll make people not worry about it or just think like, whatever. Like, you're right. It's the collective. If there's change, it comes from collective activism. You can't have one person, turn the sink off more frequently or take, replace their lawn with artificial grass. Like, okay, I'm cutting out the sprinkler usage. Like, one person making that attempt doesn't do anything. A collective group of people deciding that they're going to drive less or try to make sure that their companies they buy from are carbon neutral, that type of deal. That's where change starts to happen. But it has to be a lot of people deciding, not a few people. And unfortunately, one person can influence a lot of people by taking actions that are contrary to what they preach.
It works both ways, especially with celebrity culture, because people who model good behavior can sometimes be beneficial to a group because then they want to follow that. Oh, well, I like this celebrity and they did this. I'm going to do this too. It, of course, also works in reverse. It also happens with like the boycotts of things that are based on celebrities, whether that's sports teams, musicians, whatever. it's always funny watching both sides just jump through hoops to try and justify. It's like, oh, well, it's fine if we cancel this person because what they did was wrong, but now this person, I like what they did, so it's fine. We're not going to worry about that. It's like,
so
oh,
it's
okay.
just opinion. It's completely subjective whether what you follow.
And it's funny on both sides too. I think the right in particular is guilty of this, but this is one of those times I can feel comfortable saying both sides because there are certainly bad times where it's like, oh, that side is so obsessed with canceling things and this and that, and then the first opportunity comes for them to do it, and they're like, yep, that's it, not buying that product anymore. And you're like, oh, okay, but you hate that behavior, but it was working for you right now, so it's okay, I guess. I mean, here's the hot take, and this is why these weren't going to be hot take. Hypocrisy is bad. I know.
You really hit the nail on the head on that one. Oh, wait, hold on. If I remember right, one of our previous episodes, Sean said he heard someone say, you really hit the pony on the head. There it is.
You shouldn't do. And if Taylor Swift does it, I wouldn't model that behavior either.
That is a behavior that you don't want to follow with people. You know, don't take jets 17 miles and don't hit ponies on the head.
So I set aside a couple of these in advance. The fourth one is another one of those. This one's more recent in between here, but these were sort of meant to be like filler things or in between. And then once you mentioned you had one, I was like, well, we'll just put these all together. And who knows what Sean would have said. It doesn't matter. He's not here. You can't see this very well in the top right corner. And don't worry, I'm going to put them on screen in a more legible size. However, one of the other things that blew up on social media, and also because everything in the modern age has the heat death of like 10 minutes, has already kind of fallen off before we had a chance to talk about it, is Mom Life Comics. I'm going to put a few of these up on the screen before we discuss, because there's not a lot of point in me giving background until you kind of see what we're dealing with. I'm also going to pull the trick your grandparents used to pull and read them, partially because I understand we have listeners and not viewers, and partially because there's no higher form of comedy than reading a comic to someone else.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to be in stitches.
In panel 3, Garfield says, and you're like, okay, no, this is barely funny to begin with. It's certainly not going to translate to you telling me it like it's a joke. All right, I'm going to switch over to this window real quick. There you are. That's the one, and I got to get up over here. Terrific. So there's a few of these that really got circulated, and there's a whole Instagram account with plenty of other ones, some that are not nearly so controversial. But these are the ones that really stood out and were circulating, especially on Twitter, where it made the jump from Instagram and then went viral as people made memes and spinoffs. So this one says, one of the many differences between me and my husband. The husband's usually depicted as like balding. Nobody has any eyes. They're all kind of soulless. In this particular picture, one of the things people made fun of was the husband looks like he's packing, but it's actually just his other leg not quite drawn correctly. So don't worry about that. But also look at it kind of and confront it. Anyways, one of the many differences between me and my husband, and it's just her and him, and this happens a lot in these comics where it's like they're different thought processes. She says, oh, look, the last ripe peach. I'll save it for the kids. They love peaches so much. And so is underlined. And he says, oh, look, the last ripe peach. I'll use it as a special treat in my daily smoothie. So, Dave, before we get into the background, I'm just curious on this particular comic. This is the one that really went viral, and then I'll show the other ones. What do you think about this right now?
Playing stereotypes. I mean, it's low-hanging fruit as far as let's take something that, oh, yeah, women care more about their families than men, and so men are selfish. Let's just play on stereotypes. Now, I will say stereotypes often have basis in reality. And will I say that I've been guilty of something similar to this, where I'm like, oh yeah, I'll make my plate of food first before I make the kids sometimes. Maybe, because there are times it happens. People get selfish sometimes. But still, like, they're just playing with stereotypes.
And it can be frustrating because there are certainly plenty of, if not the majority of mothers whose work at home is underappreciated, undervalued, particularly if they're also holding down jobs themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So far be it for the two white males to come in here and be like, this is ridiculous. Whereas men are offended. However, sometimes in leaning into stereotypes, you can do more harm to the message than good. Mm-hmm. And we'll see if these other ones sort of fit that bill. We have them standing in front of the dishwasher with a pile of dishes. And the man says, I'm so excited for my birthday because it's the one day I won't have to do the dishes and make lunches. And she has a thought bubble, the wife, who says, does he think he doesn't have to be a parent on his birthday? Interesting.
See, this breaks down into what your header says about toxic relationships crying out for help. I see these types of things and I think about my own relationship and I think, wow, do these people not communicate? Like, if his desire is to not have to do certain chores on his birthday, cool. She can pick it up on that day. But also, you better pay that back on a day where she needs to have a break from those chores and pick up the slack that. It's a partnership. You work back and forth. And partnerships don't mean 50-50 down the middle. It means being supportive when the other person needs it and understanding that you got to be supportive when that other person needs it too.
So you've already sort of hit on the crux of what people said in the responses, which is like,
I didn't see this.
These people clearly are not talking to each other, and nothing's ever going to improve if you don't communicate. You can certainly talk about how to communicate, how much to communicate, but like this paints the picture of a marriage that is flailing about and could be fixed with some talking.
Well, and really, if you want to dive deep and extrapolate information and surmise things, he did speak. She didn't, which is another stereotype that you lean into where, well, if you don't understand how I feel, I'm just not even going to tell you. What's worth telling you if you can't read my mind or you don't know how I feel? You should know. Like, that's a stereotype that gets played out. And again, I think I mentioned a while ago, I'm going on a tangent here, but like when in Ted Lasso, you said one of your favorite things in the first season of Ted Lasso was the fact that there was a conflict between Roy and Keeley and they solved it in one episode that most other shows would have taken over a season to get over. And it was very refreshing. And I think people draw off of that in seeing comics like this, TV shows like this. And when there's that type of influence where you see a comic that's like, oh, this is how people act, and you see that in popular culture frequently, I think people just almost get it unconscious bias towards this is how people should act. You should, not speak to your partner. They should just know if they're their true love, they should just know what you mean. And that's really harmful to relationships, I think.
Yeah, because there are going to be people that see at least some aspect of themselves in something like this. Hopefully not the full thing, because again, this appears like an extremely bad relationship. But even if you see some of it, like, oh yeah, it doesn't feel like he's carrying the weight, just furthering that instead of actually talking about it, but finding other outlets, like pouring through them because you identify with it, but not actually working on yourself or helping your partner trying to chip in more. And look, while it's somewhat silly to dive into it to this level, people even pointed out, it's the one day I won't have to do the dishes and make lunches, which implies, maybe he's not telling the truth, that he does it every other day. And when faced with some of this backlash, she even mentioned, like, we have, I think it was 3 kids, and he holds down multiple jobs, and he's really supportive, and it's like, it's not really like this, but that's not what you're modeling to other people. And again, some of this is meant to be, Instagram wine mom fun. So I think it's reductive to try and lay into this too much. Some people went off on this, and it's like, all right, I don't know if it's that serious. But I do think it's emblematic of a bigger issue, and that's just not talking to each other.
Yeah, and I feel like too often people are afraid to ask for what they need, and that always boggles my mind. I don't feel like if I need something, I'm pretty willing to ask for it. And I get too often people are not willing to ask for it, and I don't understand that. And that's the personality difference, but I don't get it.
I'm not especially good at it either, if I'm being honest. Now, it's different in a relationship, but just in general, I'm not really good about asking for help specifically. I don't even like smaller favors or like, hey, can we both do that? But like, I'm in trouble and I need assistance is not a thing I'm especially good at. So maybe I'm the mom in this. Oh no.
I'm the dad. You're the mom. Got it.
Well, I don't want to be wine mom.
Can I take my birthday off? That's all I'm asking.
You may not. You think you get your birthday off? Interesting. Here is the one that probably got the most hate. They're just sort of at the dinner table, and they're having a conversation, I guess, or she's having a conversation because this entire speech bubble is just her. It says, me trying to explain our household dynamic in terms my husband understands. Okay. On most sports teams, you have a superstar or a playmaker who makes things happen. That's me. Then you often have that person who just stands around waiting for other people to make plays or shoot the ball. That's you. We need you to step up so we can win as a team. Now, Dave, you're a sports fan. So, what do you feel about this subtle analogy?
It is almost insulting to everyone involved in a way. Like the idea that, oh, well, you sports people are just so stupid that I've got to break this down in terms that you can understand. Because we only can speak in sports metaphors, though those of us that like sports. Next of all, clearly the woman runs the home, and therefore she is the only one that can do anything right. The oaf husband is a trope that's been around forever. And so clearly that's what they're just demonstrating here. And like I said, it's not everything in a relationship is not 50-50. It is your partnership. That doesn't mean there is everything equal. And you work to find a balance in your relationship for what people are good at and what people aren't good at. And so this type of idea that, well, I'm the superstar who does 95% of everything, and you got like 5% when you just stand around and take credit for it, that's not fair. And that it just, again, leads into this toxic idea of relationships and that this is how relationships should be.
I wanted to take the time, in my 20s, maybe I would have, to make a really specific joke and take this comic and Photoshop Goran Dragic's head on the husband. And, I could have posted on like the Suns subreddit and gotten 60 likes, and you and Sean would have gotten a chuckle out of it. And that level of effort isn't worth it, even though it would have taken 2 seconds to find some cutout of Goran's head and stick it on him. I just want you to know that I thought about it because that's, that's the exact basketball analogy in a way. It's like, man, whether this is a caricature or lampooning something that's not really this serious or not, what a condescending way to go about this. And one of two things happens. Either this husband is an absolute doormat and telling him this isn't going to change anything anyways, or he's not going to respond well to this, and it's going to push him further away. I just don't understand the personality type that would respond to this in a favorable way.
Or what the accomplishment is in speaking to someone this way. I'm so much more important to you, partner, that I've sworn my life to. Really? Like, that's how you want to have a relationship dynamic? That's not going to last.
Yeah.
That too often... it just seems like too often, and maybe this is just people sharing things online, and people don't share their entire lives online. They only share either all the good or all the bad or something like that. But too often it's things have to be good all the time, otherwise you have a failing relationship. Or some people have things bad all the time, but only show the good. And so all of a sudden they break up and you're like, whoa, what possibly happened between the two of them? They look so good. And so people have such a skewed version of what their relationship should be. And I don't understand how you go about your life trying to expect what your relationship should be comparatively to comics, people you see online. You got to make it for yourself.
I mean, I guess it's escapism like anything else, but can't ride that high forever. This one's really not that bad, but it was the fourth that the tweet provided, and the other three were so good I just grabbed all four. But my husband working out at home, he's doing push-ups on a yoga mat. Me working out at home, she's doing push-ups on a yoga mat, but there's a child on her back and a child sitting in front of her seemingly crying, and toys everywhere, and that's mostly fine. So compared to the other three, I really have no beef with this one. No. But
the only thing I will say as someone who has kids, it is odd how they seem to gravitate towards the mom. Like, my kids love me. They want to do things with me. They're happy when I come home from work. My wife works at home. It's just how the dynamic works in our family. But it seems for some reason my wife will be trying to work on something on the computer or write something down or plan something out, and my kid will run past me to go, Mommy. It's like, well, your dad's right there. Ask him. And it's not that they don't think I can't do it. It's just mom's home more often, and that's why they do it. So that's how it is.
I figured I would leave this one in an attempt to be somewhat fair.
Yeah.
Because, again, the majority of the comics that I scrolled through on the Instagram page when this first got viral was, mostly fine, except for these outliers that everybody picked on, and occasionally even funny, not like, uproarious knee slapping, but, just kind of like, huh. There were some ones that were like, that's a good observation, but then there were other ones where you were like, I don't know. The last one I pulled up, look, I can't tell anyone what their experience might be. It is certainly possible for any situation to buck trends that we would expect, and like you said, even stereotypes always have outliers. However, we have one that says, recently my husband and I were unloading groceries from the car, and he, with his tucked-in shirt and purple shorts, has one bag, and she has, I don't know, 6 in each hand and probably 4 over her shoulders, something like that. And at the bottom it says, yes, this is an accurate depiction of our different unloading styles. That could absolutely be true, given the fact that you've characterized your husband and all these other ones. I somehow doubt it. But even if it is, I mean, isn't this typically not how this works? And it's the guys who somehow have like all of their arms loaded up, like the bags are slid up their entire arm up to their forearm. Like that's how I carry groceries in. Usually I shouldn't. I should just make 2 fucking trips. It'd be faster in a lot of times. So like this one, I was just kind of like, huh, okay, weird.
This is weird. I mean, everyone's personal experience is different, and I get that, and that's fine. I'm that way. I am like, do I have to come back outside? No, I prefer not to. So load them up, baby. When we're out, like as a family, like we're out at a store or, or going to like a theme park or doing something, I generally refer to myself as the pack mule. I end up carrying everything. I'm the strongest person in the family. It's just how it is. So I generally end up carrying the heavy things or the bigger things. It's just how it is, and that's fine. That's my role in a sense. So I'm okay with that. So seeing something like this, it's like, wait, what? Why is this the case? Why is she carrying everything? With just because that's different than my life experience, which it's neither right nor wrong. It just is.
Yeah. So you're right, and I think what ultimately people took from this, as this circulated and then died off in the span of like 48 hours, which was impressive.
Never even saw it.
Yeah, was that like it just, and again, maybe it is 100% true, although the author herself said it wasn't, so we really don't have any reason to believe that. But let's say it was, and all of these were spot on, and this is like the worst husband in the history of the planet. It still doesn't paint him in a good light, and I don't think, especially the more popular the account gets and the more spread it gets, that you're eventually going to have to come across the fact that he's probably going to figure it out, right? Like you're going to mention that you've, gotten more popular based on this thing you're doing, and eventually he's going to find out. And imagine being depicted in a manner like this in what's supposed to be a loving relationship. God forbid that what I said is not true, and these are not an actual depiction of what happens, and now it just looks like he's being emasculated. We talked earlier about like toxic masculinity. This is almost like the opposite of it, where it's like, you have no value in this relationship. I do everything right. And again, caricature, comedy, whatever, but it's like, is this really helpful? Is this what you really want to put into the universe?
I can see you depicting humorous aspects of your relationship online and exaggerating in that and being fine with it as a husband, because you're exaggerating and that's what gets people to laugh. But man, I hope that's not true. I hope these are exaggerations, I guess.
It sounds like they are from what she says. I don't want to spend any more time on it than we already have. But those were really making the round, because I kept seeing them pop up on my feed one day, and I was, the first time I was like, oh boy, that's kind of a gross comic. And then there were several, and then people started memeing them. Like if I go back to the first one of the most popular memes, I didn't pull it up, but like the Peach one, I closed out of it. Whatever. There we go. That's back. The Peach one, they replaced his speech bubble with just ... This is a trap. And then people are like, it's one ripe peach and you have 4 kids. What the fuck are they going to do with a quarter of a peach?
No
or like,
kidding.
It's going to be spoiled in like 3 hours. Or why don't you just go to the grocery store and buy more peaches? And everybody loves them so much.
That would have been my response. I would have been like, there's one last peach. I'm going to eat this peach. And then I'm going to go to the store and buy more for my family.
Yeah, because the store's like 3 minutes from here. We all love peaches. I'm going to eat this peach and I'll buy more later. And we can all have peaches. That's too much of a concept, though.
I know. It doesn't fit into a panel.
That's right. All right, that was hot take number 3 that wasn't all that hot. Drunk says, equal rights for women. I like that picture. I don't know if her having to carry the 90% of them is equal per se, but I mean, if both people on both genders are expected to do that, then I suppose. I don't know. There'll never be true equality. That's what I will maintain to my death. We obviously should strive to find as much as we can, but...
There's just not going to be. People don't want the same thing, so you can't, by definition, be equal. Weird.
There goes that source. Let's just delete it so I don't even have to think about it later.
Yep.
Boom, the red dot's gone. I love it. Nobody else saw the red dot, but I did, and Dave did. All right. Heated Hubbub's a quicker one. We won't spend as much time on it as the last one because we're running out the stretch here. But did you hear about what BMW did?
They heated their seats?
Not exactly. I mean, kind of, yes, but not
That's been in
quite.
cars for a while.
So this has been happening for, I guess, a couple of years to some extent, but I think this most recent one was what pushed people over the edge. It's not happening in America. They're testing this in other countries. What are they testing? They're essentially doing the well, let's put it this way. They're selling subscriptions for monthly services in your car, including the ability to use your heated seats.
Mm.
Some other examples. Let's see. I was going to pull up the article. So that's $18 a month, or $180 for a year, or $300 for 3 years, or you can pay for unlimited access for $415. That's one example. Some other ones that were down here. Hold on. Heated steering wheels from $12 a month. The option to record footage from your car's cameras, $235, unlimited. That one, at least, because it involves like cloud storage and some other factors, I'm like, okay, I don't love it, but I'm like, I understand why, maybe. The Iconic Sounds Sport Package, which lets you play engine noises in your car. That's $117, just one time, though. Essentially, what we're looking at is the idea that you can put certain systems into the vehicle and then disable them for the sake of extorting additional money from your customers. You can already kind of tell my stance on this. But what do you think, Dave?
I mean, yes, it's kind of ridiculous. And if I was trying to purchase a vehicle and I was told that, oh yeah, you can buy heated seats for $18 a month, I'd be like, well, I guess I'll go buy the brand of car that doesn't charge me $18 a month for heated seats, because that sounds like a pretty good deal. Now, I'll play devil's advocate on this. If it's something that you don't want and you don't want to pay for, then I guess you have the option, or you live somewhere like Phoenix where I need heated seats 1 month out of the year. It's $400 for that feature. Maybe it's cheaper for me for the life of the car to just do that. I don't know. You do have options, so I can play devil's advocate in that instance. You have options. However, wasting the money to put the feature in the car to disable it is kind of ridiculous to me.
Yeah, because here's the problem. We've essentially put microtransactions into cars.
Mm-hmm.
We've put DLC, the bane of the video game existence, into vehicles, because you're right. If we're talking extra fancy center console and, like you said, heated or cooled seats, dual climate control, whatever, like those are all extra features, and the ability to choose those when you're lining up your vehicle, you want to have some control over that, especially with this kind of investment. We're not making $100 purchase and being like, I don't really care, give me whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this isn't, to use the computer terminology, this isn't hardware. This is software. This is turning on or off an ability that you've already had to install, as you mentioned. Like, this is in the car. It's like the day one DLC for like Mass Effect or whatever else, other games that have caught fire for that, where it's like, this is already here. You're gating me off of it just to charge me more money for a thing that's already been finished and was available then, but you held me away from it just to extort me a little bit more. It's like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can understand certain features. Tesla, for example, their software, the stuff their self-driving software that you can pay for, you can pay a monthly service fee for it. That is software. Or you can pay, there's different music things, there's subscription-based media things that you can pay for in a Tesla, for example. That type of thing, I totally understand having a monthly service fee. It's software, it's something that you pay for the right to use. They take it away when you don't pay for it. Like, that's software. It's the hardware stuff that really gets under my skin, because like you said, Chris, if you're designing a car, if you're buying a brand new car and you say, okay, I want this feature, this feature, this feature. Okay, they're going to build that car to those specifications, or find one that's built with those specifications. They're not wasting materials, which in our supply chain issues we've had over the past couple of years and production problems we've had over the past couple of years, why would you want to build a car that has extra stuff in it to not use? It doesn't, just unless you have, like you said, the idea of extorting monthly service fees, which is just ridiculous.
And how much buy-in do you have to then offset the cost of installing this in all of them?
Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that a lot of people are going to be like, well, unless they're going to say something along the lines of like, well, I'm going to own this car for 5 years. I can just pay for it for, $400 for 5 years and just add it on as a feature. But again, what about the people that don't? You've wasted the money on that. I don't understand it.
I'm sure there are some arguments out there that are like, well, maybe you get a feature and you decide you don't want it, so it won't have cost as much if you just cancel a monthly service. Like, you're like, well, I want heated seats. That's a big deal. And you use them a few times. You're like, I don't really care for it. It's like, okay, I guess. I don't know if there's anything inherently wrong with this specific line, but it's a line I'm loath to go any further on than we are right now.
I have just a hard time. Microsoft Office is another one. You used to pay for Microsoft Office. They got you Word, they got you Excel, they got you PowerPoint, they got you Outlook. It's hard to buy Microsoft Office now. It's like, oh, no. Pay for a monthly service subscription to that, which is just ridiculous to me.
Office 360 or the Adobe suite of all those, Photoshop, InDesign, etc.
And I totally get why companies want to do it. It's like, oh, this thing that we're have a one-time transaction on, we can just have a steady revenue stream. Great. But when I'm not paying something like Netflix or Hulu or a subscription service that gives me things continuously or maintains a server like PlayStation Online or something, I get paying a monthly service fee for that. I really do. They have to maintain things. It's ongoing. You can't just buy it once and then they maintain it forever. That I get. Buying something that is intended to be a one-time use on a monthly subscription fee just means that I'm going to be paying for it forever and I'm going to be in debt forever. And I don't like that.
Yep. And hell, even in the case of the software, it's like, okay, so rather than having like annual releases or whenever, Office came out like 97, 2000, 2003, like whatever. Now they can fold that in and you can get the most recent version. So like in some ways that helps because again, software, not hardware, but like, I don't know. Again, having followed the video game model for so long, and I'm not even saying all video game DLC is bad. There have been plenty of successful and even some good uses of it. But it's like, boy, you don't like getting nickel and dimed on a $60 video game. Imagine being nickel and dimed on a $50,000 BMW.
It's one of those things that I don't mind if you pay extra for extras. Like in a video game, like there was the DLC on BioShock years ago where they had the story of BioShock Infinite and you went through all of Columbia. And then they had a downloadable content for BioShock where you go into Rapture with that and like see the beginning of Rapture. That was extra. It wasn't part of the game. It was an addition to the game. It was more play. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're paying for an extra piece of the game that wasn't originally in there. Great. I don't mind that. When you're paying for extra stuff, that's fine. But when you're paying for the right to play a game, like many of games you have to play on your cell phone or something like that, that's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, so this has been implemented in places like the UK, Germany, New Zealand, South Africa, in some cases since about 2020. The heated seats in particular were a more recent development, but yeah, I mean, I'm trying to imagine like it's late at night and it's dark outside and there's a deer crossing the road and I go to turn on my high beams and I can't because I haven't subscribed, so I die. Or like a lot of cars more recently have been installing those like stability systems where if you start crossing a line it makes a noise or it corrects and it's like, ooh, sorry, you swerved and now we're taking control of your car because you swerved even though you were trying to avoid another car. You crossed the line, so now we're making the decision for it. It's like, I don't know, it's all Big Brother like technology shit.
Technology is going to be one of these things that people are going to have a hard time with because some people don't want to give into it. Some people want to fully give into it. It's I don't know how we're going to deal with it going forward because it's going to keep coming. I don't know what to do with it.
I don't want to mention anything specific because I'm not delving into politics very often on this, given my position. I also don't want to talk about it because it's boring to me in a lot of cases. But let's just say there was a candidate running for Arizona governor who wanted to put cameras in schools. How do you as a parent feel about that?
I mean, it's odd because I think there are plenty of schools out there that do have cameras in them because they have the parents. Some parents want that. They're like, I want to be able to see what my kids are doing all the time. Mm-hmm. And then there's the other side of me. It's like, well, if this is being streamed over the internet, theoretically anyone could access it if they know how to break into it. That doesn't sound good.
Yeah. And it's not usually that hard is the concern I have. Like, we're not talking about heavy encryption that people can't crack when they want to.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not a big fan. I don't have cameras in my house. I'm not a big fan of that type of thing. I've seen people that have cameras all over their house, and I'm just like, no thanks. I don't want it.
And there's a flip side where I'm not really big on cameras either, but, a Ring camera that can show you somebody stealing a package off your doorstep, or a camera in your car that can record what happened in an accident. So when somebody goes, "It was your fault," you can go, no. I can certainly see some uses for it too. It's just, again, this balance of technology versus privacy versus rights versus, oh God, here we go.
Yep. We're back down this path.
We're down the rabbit hole. Like I said, that was apropos of nothing. I'm definitely not referring to any Arizona races currently or anything of the sort. Don't worry about that.
She lost. It's fine. So,
that's the end of the show. We had some medium takes. Sean would have been disappointed in them, even though up front I would have said they were not actually hot takes. But I thought they were more discussions about topical things.
I would have loved to see episode 92 Sean trying to fight this.
This wife is just misunderstood. She's using this as a creative outlet to get her perspective out there. Everybody else shouldn't be making fun of her because they haven't walked a mile in their shoes. I don't know.
Oh, it would have been that's still too low key for what he would have tried to do.
Yeah, well, it would have been much worse, but I don't dare deign to put myself on that level.
Yeah, it's true. And I don't know. I always there's two sides to every story. Everyone's got their reasons for something, so maybe try to understand it first. And then once you understand the reasons and you think the reasons are bullshit, then, go ahead. Lambast them. That's fine. But give them that chance first, at least.
That's crazy talk, and it's that kind of crazy talk, which is why we're one of the most viewed podcasts on YouTube. So
we are coming for you, Joe Rogan.
That's right. It's only a matter of time. Alex Jones is canceled.
Yep, he's gone. Because his lawyer sucks.
God. And I was watching a video on just how bad. So forget the cross-examination and the Perry Mason moment and all that jazz, which made for compelling 2-minute video that went viral. That's all great, and anybody who enjoys reveling in Alex Jones' suffering, go off. Have fun, King. However, the truly damning thing was something that happened the next day, where there was video of the attorney once again dunking on the defense for being like, we want to have a mistrial because this, and this. And this guy's like, you didn't follow this order. You didn't challenge it in this way. You have no legal ground to stand on. And the judge was like, yeah, you don't. And so everything that happened that was bad was now locked in because there was no chance of throwing the trial out. So you're just like, oh my God. There were people, look, you have conspiracy theorists everywhere, and Alex Jones is one of them. There were some people that were like, maybe his lawyer hated him, and this was all just a front to bring him to his knees. And I'm like, I almost have to consider that as a possibility because this was gross negligence on the part of his defense.
This is getting disbarred level of negligence, to be honest. That's bad. How you give away your own clients, your defense of your own client to the opposing counsel. No, you don't do that ever. And that's a mistrial.
And the defense attorney mentioned as is probably frequently the case between legal teams, it was like a staffer, an intern, somebody working, just dealing with all the files and stuff of the case and not directly communicating. And it's like, okay, but ultimately the buck stops with you. And also, that intern, first of all, was fired. Yeah. And has been for a couple days now. But also, what a horrifying thing to realize. Unless they did it on purpose. Ooh, conspiracy. But if they didn't, just imagine, we've all had jobs and stuff. Imagine making a colossal mistake like that and then being, sweating bullets. Oh, my God.
They're going to find out.
You sent the entire case file to the opposition. Not even just his cell phone records, which would have been horrible enough. Just everything the defense has. And then the prosecution's like, do you want to recall this? And you're like, nah, we're good. You're like, okay, that sounds fun.
That's the part I don't get. Do you want to recall this? No? What?
Then you've waived the right. This is now admissible because, there is a certain protocol to this where if something accidentally gets exchanged, you can recall it and it can't be admissible in court. They waived that step, and because they did so little over the discourse to help, in the pretrial, provide evidence and hand over documents and just respond to the judge in general, there was no chance whatsoever for being like, oh, this was just a mistake. It's like, you said you didn't have any evidence to turn over, you refused to comply, then you lied about that. Oh, that's just, you can't go making the judge mad. There's just so few things. Don't tug on Superman's cape. Don't piss off your own judge. Don't do these things.
And, I'm not an Alex Jones fan. Obviously, I can't stand some of the things he said. I think he's a blowhard. And I don't want to be like, well, he got what's coming to him. because I think most people have the right to at least defend themselves in court. But geez, I guess it couldn't have happened to a better candidate, right?
Yeah, I mean, the tweets and stuff and the articles I was reading about it, there were other lawyers just kind of observing from the outside and talking about, giving perspective that were like, you just don't see revelations like this in trial. Like the TV trials always have like the bombshell evidence and stuff. And it's like, that's just not how court procedure works. There's a process to it because it's kind of out of courtesy for your fellow lawyers. You don't want to just drop something on them last minute. Here, it wasn't like they dropped it. It was handed to them and they went, this is a tasty treat, but I must insist. I can't have it. Take it back. And they're like, eat the treat. And they're like,
okay.
Like
you got it, buddy.
The attorney did a pretty good job. I'd give him like a 7.5 out of 10. It was a little bit too much at times. It was a little extra. But you can tell right before he's about to drop the perjury line because he knows what the answer to the question he's asking is. Like, even he's a little geeked out about it because he's like, they had this like 9 days in advance. So for 9 days, the prosecution is preparing this specific inquiry. And you can hear the excitement because he's like, I got him now, rubbing his hands together.
The clip of the defense or the prosecutor going, do you know what perjury is, Mr. Jones? And he's like, yes, I do know what perjury is. And him just like lavishing it. It was kind of fun.
I kind of like the Alex Jones impression. It was like half Alex Jones, half Rick.
I thought it was half Fat Albert a little bit in there, but
a little bit.
Yeah, well, I don't know how to properly do an Alex Jones. Maybe I can workshop it.
So
we have a couple comments on our chat. I realized.
Oh. I stopped paying attention down the stretch.
Oh, we had one from someone named Drunk.
I read that one. But then Adam says, Brittany Griner's now the world's most restricted free agent who's about to be a part of the most ambitious sign and trade in the league's history. Yeah, I saw some jokes about the Nets trading KD for Brittany Griner. Not really a joking matter when she's got a 9-year sentence for a pretty minor offense. And who knows, the U.S. may have to give up some kind of like war criminal back to Russia to get back a basketball player. There's a lot of nuances that we're not going to get into up on the edge of the show here, but like, yeah, it's a fascinating situation. Like trying to think about the parallels. Like, I don't know if Brittany Griner's LeBron. She's not that good, but she's a very good player. The idea of like LeBron missing an entire season because he's in jail in a foreign country, like what the fuck?
Yeah, it's mind blowing. I did see somebody's comment basically saying like, well, this only happened because she had to go play in Russia, and so the WNBA players and NBA players should be paid equally, and then she won't have to go play in a foreign country. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Like, you don't have equal pay because, the WNBA doesn't bring in any money. I'm sorry to report that to people, but it doesn't.
It's like I'm all for in cases like tennis, women's Olympic sports,
soccer,
where if the revenue is close, even the same ballpark, by all means, let's work to close that gap. But I don't have the numbers in front of me. I would assume NBA revenue is about 100-fold more than what the WNBA is making, maybe more.
I think I've heard the WNBA operates at a net loss. It's subsidized by the NBA.
I would believe that. Josh is in the chat, just barely missed this one. Darn it, that's true. But you can always go back and watch the archives, which is what I can tell the listeners as well. If you're not watching the podcast live, and you should, it's the cool way to do it now. You can always watch it on demand on YouTube if you want the video version, or there's, of course, still the podcast version on iTunes, Stitcher, etc. So you can always hop back in. We got to 6 topics, as it turned out, not just 4, just because we were cruising through the news, and then somebody brought one up in chat, so this is all well and good.
It's great. That's why we'd run a live show. I like the participation, and we can talk about things. And then you can respond to us, people.
That's right. So when you're watching, or if you're not already, that's the way to do it now. Podcast is still there for people who want to do it that way. I get it. When you're on the go, when you're working out, when you're at work and you can't give it your full attention, I understand. That's why we're going to keep it going. We're not going to stop it. But like, think about the game show. Think about the tournaments with the brackets. Like, there's so many bonuses for being on video. So if you're not already, if you're listening to this in the podcast version, come on in. The water's great. However, that is the end of this episode. In between shows, you can find us on our website, objectionnetwork.com. We're still posting there. Sometimes all the podcast episodes go there. Or you can find us on youtube.com/objectionnetwork. You're either already there or you should be. We'll see you next time.